Hello everyone. So now that we know that what is the blockchain technology and how does the blockchain technology works and what are the smart contracts. So now in this video we will move ahead and we will create our first smart contract with the Ethereum blockchain. So let's start. Now to create the first smart contract, now we'll move on ahead and then we will search for the Remix, which is the online Ethereum IDE to deploy and to run the smart contracts. And once you will open this, so then you will see now we have a loading screen of the Remix IDE, and then you will see now we have a default workspace in the file explorers, and then you will see this is the welcome screen of the Remix IDE, and then you can learn anything about the Remix by going to their documentation as well, and this is the resource for the documentation of the Remix. And then now you will see we have a workspaces with the default workspaces and three folders, which is the contracts, scripts and the test, and we have a readme file there as well. And then in the second option there after the files we have the Solidity compiler, which is like the compiler settings which we can compile for the Solidity. And then the third option is like a deployment, and this is a deployment section. And in the environment we have a JavaScript VM, the injected web3, and if we will use the injected web3 then we will use a web3 resource like a MetaMask to connect with the web3 provider. And then you will see we have a web3 provider as well, which is like, and now you will see we have a accounts here and we have a several accounts here, and each account contains the 100 ether for the testing, and these are not the actual Ethereums, but these are the 100 ether just for testing purposes. And then you will say we have a gas limit, and then we have a value, and then we can change the value into ether as well, the Finny as well, the GWay as well. And then you will see now we have no any deployed contracts for that. So now I will go to the files and I will create a new file, and it will be the first .sol to create a new smart contract, and the SOL extension is used to create a new Solidity file. So the first line of the smart contract will contain a pragma line, and it is like a directive which tells the compiler that which version of the Solidity will be using. So it will be the pragma and it will be the Solidity, and then we need to define here the version of the Solidity. So we can define here version as by the symbol, and we can just define like 0.8, and we can just check the versions from here as well after the files icon. Now you will see we have a default version of the 0.8.7 of the Solidity, so we can just add here the 0.8.7, and then we can just add the semicolon. And now to create the smart contract, now it is the same as we do in the Java or the JavaScript or any of the object-oriented programming language, like we define here the class and then we use the class inside that. But now in the Solidity programming language we have the contract instead of the class, and then we have to define the name of the contract as well, like it will the first, and then we can just add the curly braces. So now this is like a first contract which we will be compiling, and now this will add, if I will now add here some variable inside that. So for the variable we have to define the type of the variable as well, because it is a statically typed language. So for the type, the first type will be I'll be using here, which is the uint, and then we will learn about the uint later in the course. But now we have to define the uint, and then we can define it as the public, and then we can define here the name of the variable, and that can be like the myint, and the default value of the myint will be equals to the 10. So now we have defined here the uint, which like unsigned integer which holds the value of the 256 bytes, and then we have a public keyword which is telling this variable that it can be accessible from anywhere within this smart contract. And then we are now defining there the myint, which is the name of the variable. And then you will see if I will now compile it, you have to save and it will automatically compile, and you will see now we have a warning here, but we can fix that later. And then now you will see we have here the Solidity compiler, and it is now compiled. And then we can go to the deployments, and then now you will see we have a several accounts where we can deploy, and then we will deploy just from the JavaScript VM, which is like a virtual machine where we can deploy and run the smart contracts for the testing purposes. You will see we have a deploy option, so we are not deploying a smart contract from the first account which contains 100 ether. So once I will now deploy, so then you will see now we have something there on the screen. Now you will see now we have a transaction, and it contains a log that the status is now completed, the status is true, and the transaction is mined, and the execution of the transaction is succeeded, and the from this account and to this account and anyone. And it contains all of the hash and all of the codes of the transaction which has happened during this deployment. Then now you will see we have here the first smart contract. If you will expand this, now you will see we have a first, which is the name of the smart contract, and then we have a address where the smart contract is added. And then now you will see we have defined a variable as the myint. So now we have a variable here as well, and because it is a public variable, and the public variable creates a getter for the variable automatically inside that. So if we will define any variable or any function as the public, so it will automatically define a getter function for that. So once you will click the my int, then you will see we have a uint56, which is the unsigned integer 256, and then we have a default value of the 10 which we have defined. And if I will now increase this value, or if I will now just remove the public from here, and if I will now just save and compile again, if I will now just remove all of the deployments, and if I will deploy again, now you will see we have now deployed again. And once if I will now expand this, now you will see we have no any getter function where we can get this value. So now this variable is private unless we add a public here. So we have to add here the public now. So now this variable is public, and then we can just define again the smart contract. Now you will see we will now define the smart contract. We have the myInt variable which contains a 12 value by default. So we have just created our first smart contract, and then we have compiled and we have deployed the smart contract as well. So this is all about this video, which I want to show you that how to create your first smart contract with the Solidity. So that's all for this video. So thank you guys for watching the video, and I hope you will like the video as well. And please subscribe to the channel, and please continue the playlist of the Solidity programming language which we'll be using to build the smart contracts. So thank you.